So here we go, y'all. The U.S. has committed to sending ground forces into Saudi Arabia after their oil field was attacked. Here's that, by the way. You know, we discussed this very recently. There was a drone attack on the Saudi oil field. Now, U.S. intelligence saying Iran. It's definitely Iran, 100%. No question about it. It's Iran. Do I believe them? No. I'm convinced it's the Houthi rebels. Why? Because Saudi Arabia has been doing a genocide in Yemen for years now, about 4 years now, and they're going after the Houthi government in Yemen. Now, is Iran totally uninvolved? No, they are involved. They gave the Houthis the weapons. So they're involved in that respect, but that's equally as involved as us giving Saudi Arabia the weapons that they then use to do their genocide in Yemen. So we're culpable in that respect. And they're trying to say blame Iran for all of this, even though I'm convinced it was the Houthis who did this attack on Saudi Arabia. So in response to this, the Trump administration announced, yeah, we're sending U.S. troops into Saudi Arabia. For what? To protect the oil fields. That's what they're doing. Sending U.S. troops. U.S. troops are going to put their lives on the line to protect oil for the Saudi theocratic dictatorship.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. General Dunford and I just returned from the White House, where we met with the President and his national security team to discuss options to deter Iran's continued aggressive behavior. As we have seen, the Iranian regime is waging a deliberate campaign to destabilize the Middle East and impose costs on the international economy. In recent months, Iran has increased its military activity through direct attacks and support to its proxies in the region. In the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, which are vital waterways for global commerce, Iran has threatened the safe passage of ships by attacking commercial vessels and illegally seizing a British oil tanker. In Yemen, Iran is perpetuating war by providing sustained financial support and advanced weapons to the Houthi insurgency. And on June 20th, Iran shot down a United States unmanned aircraft that was flying over international waters. Despite repeated calls from President Trump to begin diplomatic talks, Iranian aggression continues to increase. In the face of this sustained malign behavior, the United States and other countries have demonstrated great restraint in hopes that Iranian leadership would choose peace and reverse Iran's steep decline into isolation and economic collapse. But the attack on September 14th against Saudi Arabian oil facilities represents a dramatic escalation of Iranian aggression. It is clear, based on detailed exploitation conducted by Saudi, the United States, and other international investigative teams, that the weapons used in the attack were Iranian produced and were not launched from Yemen, as was initially claimed. All indications are that Iran was responsible for the attack. The United States has a responsibility to protect our citizens and our interest in the region. And the international community has a responsibility to protect the global economy and international rules and norms. All of this is threatened by Iran's significant escalation of violence. This week, I've been in dialogue with the Saudi defense minister and other partners about this latest attack. To prevent further escalation, Saudi Arabia requested international support to help protect the kingdom's critical infrastructure. The United Arab Emirates has also requested assistance. In response to the kingdom's request, the President has approved the deployment of U.S. forces, which will be defensive in nature and primarily focused on air and missile defense. We will also work to accelerate the delivery of military equipment to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UAE to enhance their ability to defend themselves.
We're sending troops to Saudi Arabia that are defensive in nature to do what? To protect their oil fields. Okay, there was polling done on this question, and look at the results. Only 13% of Americans would support the U.S. military joining Saudi Arabia in a conflict as part of a response to a recent attack on two major Saudi oil fields, a new insider poll, Business Insider, of U.S. adults shows. The poll asked participants, what, if any, role do you think the U.S. should take in a response to the attack on the Saudi oil facilities? The participants were given 6 options and asked to select the one that comes closest to their view. Overall, The poll found 6% of Americans think the U.S. should engage in air assaults or bombings as part of a Saudi military response, but refrain from committing ground forces. Meanwhile, a little over 7% said, quote, the U.S. should help Saudi Arabia with a complete military assistance in whatever form may be required. The most popular position was 25%, and they said, get out of the region entirely. So I want to reiterate, only 13% of Americans say the U.S. military should join Saudi Arabia to, protect their oil fields. As I was prepping for the show, it took me, I had read through about 6 articles before I even stumbled across this story of the U.S. saying we're sending troops to Saudi Arabia. This got next to no coverage. I haven't heard a single Democratic politician release a statement on this, and I haven't seen any serious substantive coverage, detailed coverage, and lengthy coverage of this at all on any of the major networks, and even most of the print outlets didn't write this up. This is a giant story! I just told you the numbers. Only 13% of Americans want to do this, but they just announced that we're doing this. By the way, you can't do that. You got to talk to Congress. You got to get approval through Congress. This is the U.S. saying we're going to go protect Saudi oil fields. That's us doing a military action. You need that approved through Congress. Congress declares war, not the president. He's willy-nilly. Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. Go protect Saudi oil fields. You're going to send American men and women to maybe die to protect Saudi Arabian oil. There was an Onion article from a few weeks ago that it said, John Bolton, an attack on a Saudi oil field is an attack on all of us. That was from, weeks before the attack happened, and now this is literally becoming reality. And John Bolton's not even in there. It's not even John Bolton. It's Trump and Pompeo and Gina Haspel. And hey, Democrats, wake up. Wait, here you go. Here, see, they're searching. They're like, okay, we got the election coming up. We got to go after Trump. What are we going to do? And the thing that the media settled on and the Democrats started running with, the call that Trump made with the Ukrainian prime minister where he said, hey, man, you got some dirt on Joe Biden and his family for me? Look into what they're doing. And, of course, as we covered in detail, there actually is a lot of dirt there. Joe Biden's son was making $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian natural gas firm, and there was going to be an investigation into that Ukrainian natural gas firm, and then Biden threatened the person who was doing the investigation and said, if you keep doing that, we're going to pull a $1 billion subsidy that we give you away. So there is corruption there, but what does the media do? Biden didn't do anything wrong. It's not even a conspiracy theory, whatever. Look at that, Trump was trying to get information in a really bad way. Oh my God. That's the argument they're using against him right now. As this president is sending troops to Saudi Arabia to protect their oil fields, only 13% of Americans support that. This is illegal and unconstitutional. It's incredibly stupid. It risks the next giant war with Iran, which is almost certainly going to happen now. And I haven't heard a goddamn peep, not from the media, not from the Democrats. We live in the Twilight Zone, guys. We live in the Twilight Zone. It's so hard to fathom the fact that this is happening, and nobody's even talking about it. I'm going to make a prediction for you. You ready for this? I'm going to bet you that at least half of new media outlets don't even cover this. At least half of new media outlets won't even cover this. This is the state of affairs that we see in front of us right now. We got the story of the fucking year, which is the first clear step towards war with Iran, but Trump made a no call on the phonesies. So, the other thing I can't stand is that in this announcement, they're blaming Iran for what's happening in Yemen. You know who you blame for that? Saudi Arabia, who are bombing open air mosques and prisons. Open air mosques. I meant to say open air markets and mosques and not prisons, hospitals, schools. They're bombing all these civilian centers, and they're doing it repeatedly with U.S. weapons that we keep giving them. You're not blaming Iran for what's happening in Yemen. Oh, please. They're helping the Houthi rebels who took over the country 4 years ago. They're giving them weapons so that they could try their best to fight off this onslaught from Saudi Arabia, who's backed by the U.S. So this idea that, what they do is aggression. What Saudi Arabia does isn't aggression? Of course it's aggression. They're the ones who are responsible for the civilian deaths that are happening over there. And then he said, Iranian aggression has increased and the U.S. has showed great restraint. We pulled out of the Iranian nuclear agreement, and then we chastised them when months later they said, okay, we're not going to abide by it anymore. We pulled out of it, and then we get mad at them when they say, okay, I guess we'll do the same. You pulled out of it. You can't berate them to stay in the agreement when you pulled out of it. And it was verified over a dozen times that they were following the agreement to the letter, and Trump pulled out of it. So the problem is that you pulled out of it. That's the problem. Everything was going swimmingly until you blew it up, and you escalated. This idea of, U.S. has showed great restraint. You're waging an economic war on Iran. You're absolutely starving the country. You've sanctioned medicine. The International Court of Justice, the highest court at the UN, said the U.S. is not allowed to do that. That's illegal under international law. You can't do it. We said, watch us. So we waged economic warfare, and you said we've showed great restraint? There's so much propaganda and so much misinformation, and it's a shame because this stuff is not sufficiently pushed back against at any level, and it's devastating.